All right, so we're gonna go over basic measuring for a Corian top or a solid surface top. This is a countertop that is made out of a man-made material. It could be acrylic based or polyester based. This is not for stone, quartz, or anything of that nature, or laminate. Previous videos we talked about the basics of how you measure for a laminate countertop, and what you do is you draw out your rectangle shape that we have right here, and we go into our scribe and everything like that. Where there is a difference on a Corian top is you need to be aware of some of the subtleties. If we're doing a laminate top that goes all the way back to the wall here, laminate tops, unless it happens to be a bevel edge or some special edge, is usually pretty square, and your backsplash will come all the way to the end of it. So the splash is where it comes down here, it will come to the end. A mistake that sometimes people make in a Corian top that you can have a bigger edge on, so this would be like a heavy round over edge, is they take the round over edge and they take it all the way back to the wall, and then when the backsplash comes out, it can't come out all the way to the end of the counter. It ends up having to fall short, because if you take it all the way out, you kind of have this weird little gap where the splash is coming here straight, and you have this round over that's coming in, and you're having to try to fill that in. So what I do is I stop my profile 1 inch from the wall. This creates a square area at the end so that I'm able to cover that up and have the backsplash come all the way out, and you do that at both ends. I still recommend, as we talked about before with a laminate countertop, using scribe ears and things of that nature. You will still have a rounded outside corner. You will still do extended overhangs on here. When it comes to the sink, when you're doing a Corian countertop or a Gibraltar or any other solid surface acrylic polyester based, you can have a couple of different ways that sinks are done. You can have a stainless steel or a composite sink that drops in. A drop in means you cut a hole that's smaller than the overall size of the sink, and it's whatever is predetermined with the sink in the instructions, and you set that sink in, you mount it with clips or however it's supposed to be, and it has a rim on the top of it. They have stainless steel or other sinks that you can undermount where they're not a chemical bond to the Corian top, which means the Corian comes over, it overlaps the sink, usually by about 1/4 of an inch. Sometimes it could be back if the sink has a certain profile on it, and then that sink is siliconed and mounted to the underbelly of the countertop so that you have an undermount sink, but it's not a true chemical bond like you would have if you use a solid surface sink. The third way you would have it is if you had a solid surface sink, so a sink made of the same material is what you're working with. So an example would be Corian, which is a brand of material for solid surface. If you had a Corian countertop, you can have a chemically bonded, molded in sink where it appears like it's all one piece. It's important to note that typically these sinks are solid colors. They're not like other products where the sink can match the countertop. Those are pre-poured products. This is where you are attaching the sink to it. So it could be beige, it could be white, it could be off-white, and then whatever goes best with whatever pattern of material you have, and you do a chemical bond to it. So it is critical in all three of those applications that you make sure you get the center line of your sink, and not just, as we've talked in previous videos about this left to right, making sure it's the center for the cabinets, but also a front to back. And it's important to remember how much space do I have inside this cabinet when I'm doing that. And that's where you have to measure inside the cabinet. And inside this cabinet, we have 22 and 9/16 worth of space, okay? So you need to measure that, measure the width of your cabinet, okay? Where on the inside, we have 34.5 inches worth of space. You need to figure out your faucet placement, everything like that, and you need to make sure that if you mount a sink, especially an undermount sink, that It's going to clear this cabinet when you put it in. You'll still have enough room to put your your faucet in and your backsplash and be able to mount your faucet and do all the plumbing. That is a critical thing that sometimes is missed and a difference with what you normally have with a laminate top, where you might have a little bit more freedom, because normally the faucet is mounted within the sink and you kind of understand that overall area. So keep that in mind with what type of sink you're putting in the solid surface, measuring up the inside of the space and making sure you have enough room for your faucet and your splash.